I found a second wedding ring in my wife's locked car glove box. I've replayed that moment 1,000 times in my head, trying to pinpoint the exact second the ground shifted beneath me, the moment the carefully constructed reality of my life began to splinter. It was a Tuesday, just like any other Tuesday. The sky outside the suburban cul-de-sac was that washed out, indifferent blue that signals late spring in a lot of places, the kind of sky that promises nothing but another day. I was about to head out to pick up groceries, the usual run for milk and bread and whatever else Sarah had texted me about. Her phone had died again, a recurring saga that usually just meant a mild inconvenience. But this time, she'd left her car keys on the kitchen counter, and the texts were urgent, something about needing a specific brand of artisanal olive oil for a recipe she was planning for dinner. It was a small thing, a silly errand, but Sarah's cooking was an event, not just food, but an experience. She had a knack for transforming the mundane into something extraordinary, a talent that had captivated me from the moment I first saw her across a crowded bar in downtown Chicago, her laughter like wind chimes on a breezy evening. And look, before we get too deep into this, I know the story is going to hit some people hard. If you're finding yourself drawn into this, if you feel that knot in your stomach, that's okay. This is about honesty, about the messy, complicated truth of being human. So if you connect with any of this, if it makes you think or feel, do me a favor, hit that like button. It really helps get these stories out there. And if you're not already subscribed, do that too. Ring the bell so you don't miss the next part, because believe me, you'll want to hear how this all shakes out. Share it with someone you think might understand, and leave a comment below. Let me know what you would have done or what you think is going on. Your thoughts mean a lot. So I grabbed Sarah's keys, the little leather fob with the worn-out Jaguar emblem. She'd insisted on the Jaguar, even though it was an older model, a bit of a gas guzzler. "It's got character, Mark," she'd said, her eyes sparkling, that familiar, infectious enthusiasm. And it did. Everything about Sarah had character. Her apartment in the city, the way she'd painted the walls a bold, unapologetic teal, the vintage record player in the living room, filled with vinyl from artists I'd never even heard of. It was all so uniquely her. We'd met at a friend's party, a mutual acquaintance from my old college days. I was in town for a work conference, feeling a bit adrift in the anonymity of a hotel room. Then there was Sarah, holding court by the bookshelf, passionately debating the merits of some obscure French New Wave film. I was hooked. Within weeks, I was making excuses to fly back to Chicago. We did the long-distance thing for almost a year, a blur of rushed weekends and tearful airport goodbyes. Then I got transferred to a regional office that was only a 2-hour drive away. We were finally in the same time zone, the same state. Marriage felt like the natural, inevitable next step. We bought this house, a nice place in a decent suburb. Good schools for when we eventually decided to start a family, though that was still a few years down the line. We had this whole picture painted out in our heads, a beautiful, sun-drenched suburban dream. And for the most part, it was. But that Tuesday, as I was heading for the door, I remembered the olive oil. Sarah was meticulous about her ingredients. She swore certain dishes just wouldn't turn out right without the specific Tuscan brand she favored. It was in her car, she texted earlier. So I went back to the kitchen, grabbed her car keys again, and headed for the driveway. Her car, the Jaguar, was parked right where she always left it, nestled neatly between our SUVs. I slid into the driver's seat, the worn leather cool against my skin. The familiar scent of Sarah's perfume, a subtle mix of jasmine and something a little more musky, still lingered in the air. It was comforting, intimate. I reached for the glove box, ready to rummage for the little plastic container she'd described. But it was locked. That was unusual. Sarah was forgetful, yes, but she wasn't usually this deliberate. She never locked the glove box, not unless she had something really valuable in there, and I couldn't think of anything she'd have that warranted that kind of security in her everyday car. A flicker of annoyance, small and insignificant, pricked at me. I sighed, a little puff of air against the quiet of the car. "Sarah," I muttered to myself, a half-formed complaint. I fumbled around for her spare key, the one she kept tucked away in that little magnetic box under the bumper. I hated that box. It always felt a little grubby. But there it was, tucked under the rear bumper, cool metal against my fingertips. I retrieved the spare key, inserted it into the glove box lock, and turned. The latch clicked open with a soft, almost apologetic sound. And that's when I saw it. Beneath a scattering of receipts, a half-empty pack of gum, and a crumpled tissue lying flat on the velvet lining, was a ring. Not a cheap ring, not a placeholder. It was a wedding ring, a delicate gold band, identical to the one Sarah wore on her left hand. My stomach did a slow, sickening lurch.
It couldn't be. I picked it up, my fingers trembling. It was undeniably real. The weight of it in my palm felt immense, suffocating. It was a twin, exactly like mine, exactly like the one I'd slipped onto Sarah's finger 5 years ago in that little chapel overlooking the ocean, the one she never took off. My mind in that instant was a chaotic storm. It raced, a million possibilities flashing and dying like faulty neon signs. Was it a spare? Did she have it made for some reason? A backup? The absurdity of the thought hit me. Why would she need a backup wedding ring? Unless it wasn't hers. The implication slammed into me with the force of a physical blow. I felt a sudden, desperate need for air, even though I was already breathing. My chest tightened, a band of iron squeezing my lungs. My eyes scanned the glove box again, searching for any clue, any explanation that wasn't that. There was a small, almost imperceptible smudge of something dark on the velvet, near where the ring had been. I leaned closer, my breath catching in my throat. It looked like eyeliner. Sarah didn't wear eyeliner on Tuesdays. She saved it for special occasions, for date nights, for when she wanted to feel a little extra glam. And it wasn't her shade. Her eyeliner was a deep, rich brown. This was black, smudged black. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set the ring back down, its weight suddenly unbearable. I couldn't process it. This was Sarah, my Sarah, the woman who left me little notes in my lunch bag, who remembered my mom's birthday without fail, who kissed me goodnight every single night, her lips soft and familiar, the woman whose laughter was the soundtrack to my life. This couldn't be her, not my Sarah. I pulled out my phone, my fingers fumbling on the screen. I needed to call her. I needed to hear her voice, to ask her, to clear this up. But what would I say? "Hey honey, I found a second wedding ring in your glove box. What's up?" The words felt ridiculous, unbelievable, even as the cold dread spread through me.
I scrolled through my contacts, my thumb hovering over her name. I couldn't do it. Not yet. I needed to think. I needed to breathe. I got out of the car, my legs feeling shaky, like I was walking on stilts. The familiar sight of my perfectly manicured lawn, the cheerful yellow flowers in the window boxes felt alien. Wrong. The silence of the neighborhood, usually a source of peace, now felt deafening, pregnant with unspoken truths. I walked back into the house, the front door closing softly behind me. The air inside was warm, tinged with the faint scent of something baking. Sarah's latest culinary experiment. I went to the kitchen, the heart of our home, the place where we'd shared countless meals, whispered secrets, and planned our future. Her keys were still on the counter, next to a small pile of mail. I picked them up, the cool metal familiar, yet somehow tainted. I looked at the Jaguar keys. And then I looked at my own keys, the ones for my SUV, hanging on the hook by the door. I'd driven my SUV yesterday. Had Sarah driven her Jaguar then? I tried to recall her movements, her schedule. She'd had a book club meeting, I remembered that. It was at Brenda Peterson's house, just a few blocks away. But Brenda's driveway was always packed. Sarah usually parked down the street. My mind kept circling back to the ring. It wasn't just a ring. It was a symbol of commitment, of vows, of a sacred promise. And there it was, nestled in her car, a silent testament to what? A secret life? A betrayal? The thought was a poison, seeping into every corner of my consciousness. I walked into our bedroom, the room where we slept, where we shared our dreams and our vulnerabilities. Her side of the closet was impeccably organized, a kaleidoscope of sensible blouses and stylish dresses. Her dresser drawers were neat, her jewelry laid out carefully. I opened her jewelry box, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. Her engagement ring, my grandmother's diamond, sparkled under the light. Her wedding band, the one I'd bought, sat beside it. No duplicates, no spares, just the two. I sat on the edge of our bed,
the silence of the house pressing in on me. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I looked at the wedding photo on our nightstand, Sarah and me, beaming, so young, so full of hope. Her eyes, those beautiful hazel eyes, met mine in the frame. Was that a lie? Was she already living a double life then? The thought was unbearable. My phone buzzed, startling me. It was Sarah. "Hey, honey, just got back from Brenda's. Left my phone charger at home, totally dead. Can you bring it to me? Meet me at the park by the lake in about 20 minutes. Need to grab some air before I head back. Love you." The park by the lake. Our spot. Where I proposed. Where we'd had our first picnic. My hands clenched around the phone. My mind was a battlefield, the desire for comfort warring with the gnawing suspicion. Should I confront her? Should I pretend I hadn't found anything? Should I go to the park and watch her? Look for signs, for clues? I stood up, my legs still heavy, but with a new, grim determination. I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't pretend it away. The olive oil, the ring, the smudged eyeliner. It was all too much. I walked to the garage, my footsteps echoing in the sudden stillness. I got into my SUV, the familiar hum of the engine a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. As I pulled out of the driveway, I glanced back at Sarah's Jaguar, its sleek, dark form sitting innocently in the sun. It looked like just another car, but I knew now it held a secret that had shattered my world. The park was only a few miles away, but the drive felt like an eternity. Every passing car, every rustle of leaves seemed to whisper accusations. The sun beat down, but I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. I was heading towards an answer, but I was terrified of what I might find. The air in the park was thick with the scent of freshly cut grass and blooming honeysuckle, a sickeningly sweet contrast to the sourness churning in my gut. The lake shimmered under the afternoon sun, a deceptive calm that mirrored the turmoil I was trying to keep hidden. I parked my SUV a little way off, near a cluster of mature oak trees, the kind that have seen generations come and go. I didn't want to be too close. Not yet. I needed to see her before she saw me, to gauge her mood, to look for anything that might betray the secret I now carried. I got out of the car, my keys still clutched tight in my fist, the metal digging into my palm. I walked towards the lakefront path, my steps measured, deliberate. Sarah was already there, sitting on our usual bench, her back to me. She was wearing that light blue sundress, the one with the delicate floral pattern that always made me think of summer days and easy laughter. Her shoulders were relaxed, her head tilted back as if she was soaking in the sun. She looked so peaceful, so normal. It was almost unbearable. My stomach twisted. The wedding ring, the smudged eyeliner, it all came rushing back, a tidal wave of doubt and suspicion. I stopped behind a large oak, just out of her line of sight, and watched her for a moment longer. She pulled out her phone, her thumb scrolling through something, a faint smile playing on her lips, a smile I thought was reserved for me, a smile I thought was a sign of her contentment, her happiness with us. The anger started to build then, a slow burn that began to consume the fear. How could she do this? How could she stand there, bathed in sunlight, looking like the picture of serene contentment, while I was drowning in a sea of deception? I felt a primal urge to just walk up to her and scream, to demand an explanation, to shatter that manufactured peace. But I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to be sure. I needed to see if the innocent facade would crack under pressure. She put her phone down and sighed, a soft, contented sound that grated on my nerves. She stood up, stretched her arms above her head, and turned as if to survey the lake. Her eyes swept past my hiding spot, her gaze moving on without registering my presence. It was like I was invisible, a ghost. And then she looked back. Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of surprise, then a practiced warmth spread across her face. "Mark, hey, you made it," she called out, her voice bright, cheerful, and completely unburdened. Unburdened by the weight of what I now knew. She walked towards me, her stride confident, her arms open for a hug. I could see her clearly now, the way her hair caught the light, the slight blush on her cheeks, and the faint trace of black eyeliner, just as I'd suspected, smudged ever so slightly at the outer corner of her left eye. It wasn't her usual brown. It was definitely black, and it was definitely smudged. I forced a smile, a tight, brittle thing that felt alien on my face. "Hey," I managed, my voice a little hoarse. She reached me and wrapped her arms around me, her embrace familiar, comforting, and suddenly, utterly repulsive. I could smell her perfume, the jasmine and musk, now mixed with the faint, undeniable scent of someone else's cologne. It was a subtle, masculine scent, not mine, not our usual. A new wave of nausea washed over me. I could feel her chest pressed against mine, her heart beating against my own. Was she feeling the same tremor of guilt I imagined I would feel if I were in her position?
Or was she truly that good an actress? "Everything okay?" she asked, pulling back slightly to look at me, her brow furrowed with a hint of concern. Or was it concern? Or was it a carefully crafted performance of concern? Her eyes, those beautiful hazel eyes, searched mine. "You seem a little quiet." I pulled away from her, forcing a shrug. "Just tired. Long day at the office, and then the grocery run." I kept my gaze steady, trying to project an image of normalcy, of a husband who was just a little stressed, a little preoccupied. "You wanted to talk about something?" She turned back towards the bench, gesturing for me to sit. "Yeah, I needed to get out of the house, and I figured this was a good place for us to connect." She sat down, patting the spot beside her. I sat, leaving a carefully measured gap between us. The space felt vast, an unbridgeable chasm. "So," I began, my voice deliberately low and measured, "you said you needed to talk. Is everything all right?" I watched her face, looking for any flicker of hesitation, any sign of discomfort. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, her gaze drifting towards the water. "Yeah, well, not exactly all right, but, you know." She took a deep breath. "Mark, I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, about us, about our future." My heart leaped into my throat. This was it. The confession, the explanation. I braced myself, my muscles tensing. "Okay," I said, keeping my tone even. "What kind of thinking?" She picked at a loose thread on the bench. "It's just, we're on this path, right? The house, the jobs, the whole suburban dream. And it's good. It's really good. I love this life, Mark. I love you." She looked up at me, her eyes earnest. "But sometimes I wonder if we're settling. If maybe there's more out there for me, for us." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Settling? More out there? Was this her preamble to saying she'd met someone else? Someone who offered her what? Excitement? Adventure? A different kind of life? The cologne, the smudged eyeliner, the second ring, it all started to click into place, forming a picture far uglier than I could have imagined. "More how, Sarah?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I was afraid to push, afraid of what the answer would reveal. She fiddled with the hem of her dress. "I don't know. It's just, I feel like I'm stuck in a routine, and it's a comfortable routine, but is it enough? I see other people, they're living these different lives, taking risks, experiencing things." "What kind of risks, Sarah?" I pressed, the anger now a steady hum beneath the surface. "What kind of experiences are you talking about?" She finally met my gaze, her eyes clouded with something I couldn't quite decipher. It could have been regret, or longing, or even defiance. "I don't know, Mark. It's hard to explain. It's like there's a part of me that's still wild, unclaimed. And I feel like this life, it's taming it, caging it." The image of the ring flashed in my mind. A wild, unclaimed part. Was that what the second ring represented? A life outside of our comfortable suburban cage? A life lived with someone else? My hands clenched into fists. I could feel the veins in my arms throbbing. "So," I said, forcing myself to stay calm, to analyze, to understand the depths of this betrayal. "This part of you that's wild, has it found someone to explore with?" The question was blunt, brutal. I didn't care anymore. The pretense was too much. Her eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of genuine fear, quickly masked by a practiced composure. "What are you talking about, Mark?" Her voice was a little sharper now, the carefully constructed calm beginning to fray. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a low, dangerous growl. "I'm talking about the second wedding ring I found in your glove box, Sarah. The one that matches mine. The one that isn't mine." The color drained from her face. Her carefully composed facade crumbled, revealing a raw, panicked vulnerability. She looked at me, her mouth slightly open, as if she'd been physically struck.
Her eyes darted around, searching for an escape, for an explanation, for anything. How did you, she stammered, her voice barely audible. Your car keys were on the counter, I said, laced with the bitterness that was now consuming me. I needed the olive oil. I opened the glove box, and there it was, lying there, like a dirty little secret. I paused, letting the words sink in. And that smudge of black eyeliner, it wasn't mine. And it certainly wasn't yours, not the way you usually wear it. So Sarah, who does the ring belong to? And who wears black eyeliner when they're exploring their wild side? She flinched at the question, her gaze falling to the ground. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, punctuated only by the gentle lapping of the waves against the shore and the distant calls of seagulls. I could feel my blood pounding in my ears. Every instinct screamed at me to explode, to unleash the fury and pain that had been building inside me since I'd seen that ring. But I held myself in check. I needed to hear her. I needed to understand the extent of the damage. Finally, she looked up, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Her voice trembled as she spoke, each word a confession, a surrender. It's not what you think, isn't it? I challenged, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Because it looks exactly like what I think, Sarah. It looks like you've been living a double life, a secret life, with someone else. She shook her head, a frantic, desperate gesture. No, it's complicated. Complicated? I laughed, a harsh, broken sound. Finding a second wedding ring in your locked glove box is complicated? What's complicated about it, Sarah? Are you married to two people? Is that the complication? She squeezed her eyes shut, a single tear escaping and tracing a path down her cheek. It's an old ring from a past relationship. I kept it for sentimental reasons. Sentimental reasons? My voice rose, the control I'd been trying to maintain shattering. Sentimental reasons for a ring that's identical to the one I gave you? Sentimental reasons that require you to lock it away in your car's glove box where you'd never normally put anything? Sentimental reasons that explain the smudged black eyeliner and the unfamiliar cologne? She opened her eyes, and the raw pain in them was palpable, but I couldn't tell if it was for me, for herself, or for the situation she'd created. I met someone, she finally admitted, her voice barely a whisper. It started innocently, just talking. We connected on a level I haven't felt in a long time. A level you haven't felt with me? The question ripped out of me, raw and wounded. She hesitated, her gaze dropping again. It's not about you, Mark. It's about me and what I've been missing. And this missing part, I said, my voice dangerously quiet again. Did it involve sharing your life, your vows, your bed? She didn't answer, but her silence was a damning indictment. The tears began to flow freely now, streaks of black eyeliner blurring on her cheeks. I didn't want to hurt you, she whispered. I was going to end it. I promise. I didn't know how. And then you found the ring.
The confession hung between us, a dark cloud obscuring the sun. I stared at her, at the woman I thought I knew better than anyone in the world. The woman who had pledged her life to me. And now, she was sitting here, tearfully admitting to a betrayal that ripped through the very fabric of our marriage. The suburban dream, the sun-drenched life we'd carefully constructed, had imploded. So, this someone else, I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. Who is he? She looked up, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and something that looked like resignation. It's someone you know, Mark. My blood ran cold. Someone I know. The implications of that statement sent a fresh wave of horror through me. Who could it be? A friend? A colleague? A neighbor? The possibilities were a twisted, horrifying maze. Who, Sarah? I demanded, the question a raw plea, a desperate need for clarity in the face of this devastating confusion. Who the hell is he? She took a shaky breath, her gaze locking with mine, and the name she spoke next was like a physical blow. stealing the air from my lungs and leaving me gasping in the sudden, deafening silence. It's David. David Miller. David Miller. My best friend since college. The man who was supposed to be the best man at our wedding. The man who stood beside me, a rock of support as I navigated the complexities of life. The man who knew Sarah, who was friends with Sarah, but who I never, ever would have suspected. The world tilted. The sun seemed to dim. My mind reeled, struggling to comprehend the sheer, unimaginable scope of the betrayal. David, how could he? How could she? The two people I trusted most in the world, bound together in a secret affair that had been unfolding right under my nose. I looked at Sarah, her face a mask of despair, and then I looked out at the shimmering lake, the idyllic scenery now a mocking testament to the shattered reality of my life. The anger was gone, replaced by a hollow, chilling emptiness. A profound sense of loss, so deep it felt like a physical wound. I stood up, my legs feeling like lead, and turned away from her, away from the lake, away from everything. I didn't know where I was going or what I was going to do, but I knew with a terrifying certainty that my life had irrevocably fractured into a million irreparable pieces. I walked away, the echo of her confession. It's David Miller, ringing in my ears, a haunting melody of the ultimate betrayal. The air in the park, once thick with the scent of honeysuckle, now felt cloying, suffocating. Each breath was a struggle, a desperate attempt to expel the poison that had seeped into my life. Sarah's confession, the name David Miller, it hung between us like a shroud, a tangible manifestation of the utter devastation that had just been wrought. My vision blurred, not from tears, but from the sheer blinding impact of it all. David, my David, the guy I'd shared my deepest fears and wildest dreams with since freshman year, the man who'd held my hand through my dad's funeral, the man who'd toasted our marriage with such genuine, heartfelt joy. It was a betrayal so profound, so intricate, it felt like a surgical strike to the core of my existence. I turned my back on her, on the lake that suddenly seemed to churn with my own inner turmoil, and started walking. My pace was erratic, a stumbling gait born of shock. Each step was a hammer blow against the remnants of my life. The carefully constructed facade of our marriage, the picket fence dream, the comfortable routine, it all lay in ruins around me, scattered like broken glass. I heard her call my name, a weak, reedy sound, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. My ears were filled with the deafening roar of what I'd just learned. The park faded into a blur of greens and blues as I pushed through the trees, seeking an exit, any exit from this suffocating reality. My SUV, parked under the shade of those ancient oaks, felt like a sanctuary, a temporary reprieve from the wreckage. I fumbled for the keys, my hands shaking so violently I almost dropped them. The metal was cold, alien, a stark contrast to the burning inferno raging inside me. I slid into the driver's seat, slamming the door shut, the sound a punctuation mark at the end of a chapter I desperately wished I could rewrite. I rested my forehead against the cold plastic of the steering wheel, my eyes squeezed shut. The images flooded my mind, David's booming laugh, his reassuring hand on my shoulder, Sarah's radiant smile at our wedding. How long had this been happening? How long had they been laughing at me, at my naivete, my trust? The questions clawed at me, each one a fresh stab wound. I felt a surge of pure, unadulterated rage, hot and violent, bubbling up from the pit of my stomach. I wanted to smash something, anything, to release this pressure that was threatening to consume me. I gripped the wheel, my knuckles white, fighting the urge to just floor it, to drive aimlessly until I ran out of road or out of myself. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat, its insistent vibration a jarring intrusion. I knew who it was, Sarah. A desperate attempt to salvage something, to explain away the inexcusable. I ignored it. I couldn't talk to her. Not now. Not ever, probably. The thought of her voice, the sound of her lying to me again, was unbearable. I took a ragged breath, then another. I needed to think.
I needed to process this seismic shift that had just occurred, this implosion of my entire world. I started the car, the engine rumbling to life, a sound that felt both comforting and hollow. Where was I going? I had no idea. The familiar roads of suburbia, once a symbol of stability, now felt like a labyrinth leading nowhere. I drove, the city lights beginning to smudge into streaks as dusk settled. I ended up on the outskirts of town, the landscape slowly giving way to industrial parks and chain-link fences. It felt appropriate, bleak, functional, a reflection of how I felt inside. I found myself pulling into the parking lot of a dimly lit dive bar, the kind where nobody asks questions and anonymity is a given. The neon sign flickered, advertising cheap beer and an escape from reality. I needed that escape. I stumbled out of the car, my legs still unsteady, and pushed open the heavy glass door. The smell of stale beer, cigarette smoke, and desperation hit me like a physical blow. It was a familiar scent, a scent of people trying to drown their sorrows. Tonight, it was my sanctuary. I found a booth in the back, a dark corner where I could disappear. The bartender, a burly man with a weary expression, slid a coaster and a menu in front of me. I didn't even look at the menu. Whiskey, I slurred, my voice rough. Whatever's cheapest. He nodded, his eyes devoid of curiosity, and turned to pour. The first shot burned its way down my throat, a brief, fiery distraction. I ordered another, and then another. The alcohol began to numb the edges, to dull the sharp, agonizing pain. My thoughts, however, remained a relentless torrent. David and Sarah. The images kept replaying, each time more vivid, more cruel. I saw them together, sharing stolen glances, whispered secrets, intimate nudges. A phantom limb ache spread through my chest, the phantom limb of a love I thought was real, a trust I thought was unshakable. Hours blurred, the bar slowly emptied, then slowly filled again.
The music shifted from mournful country to something loud and obnoxious. I just sat there, staring into my glass, the amber liquid a mirror to my own dark thoughts. The guilt started to creep in then, an insidious whisper. Had I missed something? Had I been too caught up in my own life, my own work, to notice the cracks forming? Had I been a bad husband? A blind friend? The self-recrimination was a bitter pill, made even more potent by the alcohol. By the time the bar was preparing to close, I was a hollowed-out shell. The initial rage had subsided, replaced by a deep, profound sadness, a grief for the loss of not one, but two of the most important relationships in my life. I paid my tab, leaving a generous tip for the bartender who had served as a silent witness to my unraveling. Stepping back out into the night air felt like emerging from a dream, a nightmare. The stars were out, indifferent and distant, a stark contrast to the human drama I'd just witnessed. I drove home, the silence in the car amplifying the turmoil within me. The house was dark, still. Sarah was gone, of course. She'd probably fled, afraid of the confrontation, of facing the wreckage she'd created. The sight of her side of the bed, neatly made, was a fresh stab. It was all a lie. Every shared moment, every whispered promise, every tender touch. A grand, elaborate performance. I wandered through the empty rooms, each one holding a memory now tainted with betrayal. The living room, where we'd curled up on the sofa watching movies. The kitchen, where we'd shared countless meals, planning our future. The bedroom, now a ghost of intimacy. I stopped in front of the wedding photos on the mantelpiece. Sarah, beaming, her eyes full of love. Me, looking so young, so hopeful. And behind us, standing tall, beaming with pride, was David. A chilling wave of nausea washed over me. The sheer audacity of it, the utter, unmitigated gall. I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, the wedding photos a silent, damning accusation. The alcohol had done its job, dulling the immediate pain, but now a different kind of agony was setting in. The quiet, relentless ache of heartbreak, of loss, of utter, devastating loneliness. I thought about calling someone, anyone, but who? Who could I possibly talk to about this? The shame was too great, the betrayal too complex.
felt like a secret I had to carry alone, a burden too heavy for anyone else to bear. As the first hint of dawn painted the sky a bruised purple, I knew I couldn't stay in this house, in this life anymore. It was a monument to my own blindness, a constant reminder of what I had lost. I needed to disappear, to find a place where the ghosts of Sarah and David didn't haunt every corner. I packed a duffel bag, throwing in a few essentials, my mind already racing ahead, planning a route, a destination, anywhere but here. I drove east, towards the coast. The sun rose, a fiery orb climbing into the sky, indifferent to my pain. I didn't have a plan, just a desperate need to put distance between myself and the ruins of my life. The further I drove, the more the sharp edges of the betrayal began to soften, not into acceptance, but into a dull, pervasive ache. The anger, the rage, it was still there, a smoldering ember, but it was buried beneath layers of profound sadness and a deep, hollow emptiness. I stopped at a small diner somewhere in North Carolina, the kind with vinyl booths and a jukebox playing oldies. I ordered coffee, black, and a stack of pancakes. The normalcy of it all felt surreal. People around me were living their lives, unaware of the earthquake that had just leveled mine. I watched a young couple across the room, their hands intertwined, their laughter light and easy. A pang of something akin to envy, but mostly just a crushing sadness washed over me. That was what I'd had, and I'd lost it. Not just Sarah, but David too. 2 pillars of my life crumbled to dust. I spent the next few weeks drifting. I stayed in cheap motels, ate in diners, and walked along deserted beaches, the vastness of the ocean mirroring the emptiness inside me. I didn't try to contact anyone. I didn't look for work. I just existed, a ghost in the machine of life. The shock slowly gave way to a gnawing realization. This was it. This was the end of an era, the end of the man I thought I was. There were moments in the dead of night when the pain would surge, sharp and unbearable. I'd replay the conversation in the park, Sarah's tearful confession, the name that had shattered me. I'd see David's face, his familiar, trustworthy smile, and the betrayal would hit me anew, a fresh wave of horror. It was a slow, agonizing process, this dismantling of a life. One evening, sitting on a pier, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, I felt a subtle shift. It wasn't healing, not by a long shot. It was more like an acceptance of the irreversible. The damage was done, the wounds were deep, but I was still here, still breathing. The sun, though obscured by clouds, still rose each morning. Life, in its relentless way, continued. I knew I couldn't live like this forever, a fugitive from my own life. The emptiness, though vast, was also a canvas, a blank slate. It was terrifying, but also strangely liberating. The man who had walked away from that park was gone, broken, but a new man, forged in the fires of betrayal and loss, was slowly, painfully beginning to emerge. He was scarred, he was wary, but he was also, for the first time in weeks, breathing without the crushing weight of that suffocating park air. The journey back, wherever that might lead, would be long and arduous, but for now, standing on that pier, watching the last sliver of sun disappear, I felt a flicker of something that might, just might, be the beginning of something new. A fragile hope, born from the ashes of utter devastation